that it exists. People thought that's not right, and I was pretty far along.
You want to see the false friends one? Let's just watch this one, man. We'll do the false friends one next time. This guy's retarded.
Thought that's not right, and I was pretty far along in my seminary studies at that point, and I was like, well, the King James translators weren't dummies, the ESV translators weren't dummies. It's very unlikely that there's some kind of textual variant here, like some Hebrew manuscripts say halt and some say limp. So I looked up the Hebrew to see what's going on, and sure enough, the Hebrew says ever since William Tyndale.
Oh yeah, the candle. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, IGN knows, man. IGN knows now. I've been training you guys, eh? That's good.
Says ever since William Tyndale in the 1520s, there really hasn't been a translation.
Yeah, you know what? If this guy shows up there, he'll have bodyguards and stuff or something, or they'll like separate me or something, or they won't even invite me. I don't even know. But it's not. I don't know, man. When they have that. But yeah, you're right. That'd be interesting. But he would probably show up. Maybe not though, because they know people are gonna be there, kind of like asking him questions and stuff. They don't want to ask questions. They don't want to like. They'll go on these other shills and interview. Like shills only interview shills, right? But they won't come onto my show and be interviewed, right? Or anything like that, because they know they'll get destroyed.
That could start from scratch. Even he had some tradition to appeal back to in Wycliffe and in common Christian.
Hey, dude, I told you not to swear, right? I told you that, right? Look, I don't mind you hanging out here saying your dumb ideas because I know my people don't really respond to foolishness like that. But look, just don't swear, okay? Just keep it clean, all right? Anyway, let's move on.
That could start from scratch. Even he had some tradition to appeal back to in Wycliffe and in common Christian discussion of Christian things. You know, he didn't have to invent that many words. Ever since then, we've had this dominating tradition, the Tyndale tradition, and I think it's been an excellent tradition. I'm very thankful for it. When it comes right down to it, if I have to choose for my church something, I actually want to go with among the Bible translations that have arisen.
I'm excited to have in the studio with
the logical point being made there, and an important one, and I think that will bring some comfort to your viewers who often enough are asking, in my experience,
and have some information in where you can find more about him. But
so anyway, so this is Wesley's thing. Is this purple or blue? Anyway, whatever this is Freemasonic as hell. This mask, you know, it's like to bring you back to the mind of the Crusades. It's to bring that to your mind, you know. And then this silver play button. We know the silver play button is always Shelley. Oh, the plant. They have the plant. I don't know if the plant is one of the things, but it might be. I don't know, but it might be. It might be like some kind of tree of life thing. Yeah. That's what thing is saying. Oh, it's near the sun symbol. Okay. That makes sense. That could be. I don't know about the plant thing. I never knew about that, but it's interesting that you noticed that pattern because that's worth thinking about. Yeah, the Templar. See, this is like, the Crusades. When they talk about the Crusades, they're really talking about the Templars, you know? That's what IJN is talking about, because the Templars are Freemasons, you know? Or they're like, they worship Baphomet and stuff, you know?
Mark is a teacher and a scholar, and we're going to be talking about all things English Bible translation today. I had the pleasure of having Mark out at our Apologetics Canada conference in 2024. He gave an excellent talk on an issue adjacent to this. I want to ask you a couple questions before we really start digging into things, Mark, because the people want to know, what's the most underrated Bible?
This guy, how good? I don't know. I don't get it how like this guy is just like, he went to my school. He's just like me, you know? I mean, obviously I'm kind of a loser or whatever, but this guy, he became the president of Apologetics Canada. And then now he's like some kind of like professor or whatever, or something like that. And then all of a sudden he gets like on all the like big time show networks and stuff, like Joe Rogan and those comedian guys and all this stuff were interviewing him. It's like ridiculous, right? So obviously Shelley, obviously fake.
Typography feature.
I have to say it's the Reader's Bible. I played a small role in persuading Crossway many years ago. We're talking 15 or so, to put out a reader's Bible of their own, and I still love it. I still use it. It's like my family devotions Bible. I keep it near the family dinner table, and I still feel some level of disappointment that though Adam Lewis Green's Bibliotheca project, which is sitting on my piano over there in my office, though it achieved wide fame, I wonder if it's achieved wide usage. I think a lot of people have it.
Oh,
and don't.
sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. My bad. I didn't mean to say it like that. I just like, I mean, in the way they see the world, then yes, I would be. But yeah, I agree. I'm not. Thank you. But thanks. I appreciate that. But yeah, I don't want to say, yeah, because I don't want to make you guys feel bad either, right? If I say stuff like that. But this is weird too. What is this? What are they talking about? This, the 5 books in the former Bibliotheca. What's this project? Anyway, sorry.
Don't
What's going on?
use it. I'd still like to see people using Bibles that don't have verse numbers and chapter numbers in them. I think that's really healthy. I'm not saying get rid of those useful, addresses for Bible content, but at least add readers' Bibles to your study edition and your reading rotation.
Yeah, I got my wife.
Oh, those type of Bibles. They get Bibles. They get Bibles without the verse numbers and the chapters. They think that that's important to do because it was like the original didn't have those things, right? And they think that they can recreate the original. But I think personally, that the chapters and the verses are also from God. There's something very interesting about the way it structures the book. So they'll say like, oh wait, this poem is a poem that got split in half by the chapters. But if you really look at it, what they're doing, what the Bible seems to be doing, is that part of the poem, yes, the poem does stretch across the 2 chapters. But they're actually trying. It's like you can see why they would do that. Why they might open the next chapter with the end of the poem. You know what I mean? Anyway, so these critical scholars will often say stuff like that, like, "Oh, these chapters and these verses are not original, so that's why they'll interpret it. They'll reimagine the structure and stuff like that. They'll give you like their own outline, which is not following that chapter verse thing, Which is nothing wrong with that either, but it's just saying that I'm just saying that like they try to make you doubt those things, but I think that it's fine to think that those are from God. I don't see a problem with that.
A few years ago, and I was shocked when I took it off the shelf and was reading it a few times how much more I read without the verse divisions. It is on our shelf, and we host a Bible study every Wednesday at our house. And so if someone needs a Bible and I end up giving it to them by accident, then they are appropriately lost sometimes. But I think there's a lot of benefit to that. Here's a second question for you. I did some digging and I found a fact that I think is interesting. What kind of chickens do you have?
Oh boy, my children are now on screen so that Daddy can have quiet in his office. They're the ones who know all of the breeds, but I know we have a leghorn. That's my favorite. Her name is Penelope. She's white, a very bright white chicken, and she's got a ton of personality. She's always poking around. She's one of the few who can get out of the chicken yard. She can just fly over the barriers I've made. We have Well Summers, and the kids. It's been a revelation to me how awesome it is to have chickens. They suburbia.
My wife grew up with chickens. She tells me she had a cook, and my kid
almost 45, and so my job is no longer.
And so now that the important issues are out of the way, we can get to some Bible questions. So when we're talking about the Bible, and Mark, both you and I, lovers of the Bible,
Yes.
People realize there's a whole bunch of English translations. What is the difference between a more literal and more word-for-word translation? And people might have heard terms like formal versus dynamic equivalence, something like the NASB versus the NIV. But what does that really mean in terms of when you open up a Bible? What would you be looking for?
I like the terminology formal versus functional. That maybe gives a little more of a hint as to what we're actually talking about. I think it's really helpful to start by saying we are talking about something fundamental to translation between languages. If you have a document of any length at all, beyond a sentence, you're going to face immediate questions no matter what languages you're translating between. How often do I represent the forms of the original language in the target language that I'm translating into versus how often do I kind of shade toward the meaning, knowing that the way English speakers say this is a little different from the forms that Spanish speakers use, so I'm going to translate according to meaning. And the difference between these two things, the tool belt that translators bring into their translation is always going to include both elements. Dave Brunn wrote a fantastic book called One Bible, Many Versions. I remember I bought it on Kindle and I was so enthralled with it that I read it in bed like straight through while I had the flu back in 2012. Actually, I had the flu when I was at Apologetics Canada too, and I just barely made it through. That's another memory I have from last time I got to see you, I think, in person. But formal versus functional, rather than seeing those as opposing forces, two different teams, two different tribes, I see them as two different tools. And my ESV right here, and I have a really nice copy of it that Crossway gave to me. I love this one, the ESV Heirloom Bible, and I asked them to give me a nice leather version. It's Wellington leather, very similar to Horween leather. I don't want to have lots of premium Bibles, but I wanted to have one nice one, and so this is it. This is a more formal version because the ESV translators, whom I love and trust, many of them I read their other books, they tend to want to make sure to represent the forms of the Greek and Hebrew in the English. So among many other things that means is if there's one word in the Hebrew, they tend to want to represent it with at least one word in the English. If that word is a noun, they tend to want to use a noun in English. If it's a verb, they tend to want to use a verb in English. That might seem obvious. Well, why don't you just always do that? Well, the reason is that the way Greek and Hebrew work, just those are different from the way English works. So a simple example: if you want to follow the word order, if you want to follow that form in the Greek, Greek, then you're going to have the words like and but and for will often go second in the clause rather than first. And that just makes for horrible English, so we can't do that. So we got to make an adjustment for meaning. And the more adjustments for meaning that you make, the more likely you are to end up with something like this New Living Translation that I've got that does end up being what I could call a little more interpretive, because it's taking opportunities to make sure that you get the meaning across. It is, quote unquote, adding words. Before that alarms people, however, I'll just give one quick example. I always grew up hearing Psalm 16:6 in the King James, which I've also got here, and Thomas Nelson edition I really like. And it says, "The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage," something like that. And I just never knew what the lines were. And I've asked many people actually since I started teaching about Bible translation, what are the lines? What lines have fallen unto me in pleasant places? And most people don't know. I read this and even memorized it and didn't understand it and didn't realize I didn't understand it until I picked up the NIV and it, quote unquote, added the word boundary. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. And I was like, duh, it's the lot. He's using a metaphor, but the literal picture is of the boundary lines around a lot of land. And growing up, a lot of Christians fought over formal versus functional translations. And I felt like I had to have a team. But when I started to realize, wait a minute, both are helping me understand, I started to see.
Wait. So like, why do you need that? Why do you need that word boundary there? Like the word is lines. So then he was like, okay, what does lines mean? Why does it mean lines? Or what does it mean by lines? And then he went and looked it up and he found out that it means boundary lines. So then now. Why do you need a new Bible? Like, why do you need a new translation? You need a translation to say boundary there? Why do you need that? I guess he's gonna say, "Oh, because I always knew that line, but I didn't understand it." But like, dude, I know they always attack the KJV. That's how you can tell. You can tell, like, a lot of times, a lot of the reason why I started gravitating toward Christianity is because I saw that these secular people, they'll always attack Christianity and they'll leave all the other religions alone. They never attack the other religions. They constantly attack Christianity. And they'll say, oh, it's because Christianity is like the West is a Christian place. It's not. It's a secular place. And they still attack Christianity all the time. And then you see, like, they'll always attack the King James. They won't attack the other Bibles. It's like all those Bibles are okay. Like, don't you have any problem with any of those Bibles? Why don't you ever say, like, hey, the New Living Translation is really bad? They never say that. They'll never say that. They'll say they're all pretty good. Why would they all be pretty good? Couldn't one of them be bad? Isn't any of them bad? None of them? Ridiculous. But no, they're all pretty good except for the King James. Or they'll say, oh, the King James is all right, as long as you don't try to say it's the only one.
Maybe there's space for somebody to go out in the YouTube world and tell others, let's not fight. Let's actually just get the benefits of both kinds of translation, recognizing that they're really not that distinct. They're both aiming at getting meaning across. They just tend to favor one tool over the other when they can, formal versus functional.
I think this is a really important issue for us as modern English readers to refresh anew the idea that we are reading a translation, that this is, the words are familiar, maybe even memorized. Like you, I memorized a good deal of my Bible verses as a child in the King James. They still come out in King James English. And so there's a familiarity to them, but they were originally written in another language, an ancient language. And so there's a reliance on at least some interpretive degree, no matter what translation you're reading. And that's not a bad thing either. I'm active in the leadership of my church here in Toronto.
That's the point. That's our point in a way, right? Like any translation is going to have some kind of interpretation going on. So that's why ultimately we can't trust any of them either. There's always this element of interpretation by the translators. The translators are imperfect men, right? But that's why our argument is that God has providentially given us this Bible, and he's used his mastery over creation, over the world, and over humankind to just cause them to create a Bible that was a proper translation in English, because English is the language of the world now. That makes sense. That is a good theory. It's a good way to understand it. And it's a good way if you have proper theology too, because like I was saying to you, they don't believe that under this way of thinking about the Bible, right? They're saying that God just made the Bible perfect and then just let it go. Just let the world just change it or mess around with it or whatever. And then now we need scholars to study and try to reconstruct the original. That's a way of thinking. It's a philosophical mindset. They call it deism. Okay? Where you think God is like this watchmaker who made the things and then he just let it go. He let it go because he made the laws of physics, so he just kind of let everything happen now. And then part of the deistic worldview is that they think that because they know the laws of physics, quote unquote, they think they do, they can now trace back and re-engineer back to the original, the origin of the universe. And so when that kind of thinking, that philosophy came into the Christian space, into the biblical space, then that's how they start thinking of the Bible now. They think, okay, God made the Bible perfectly in the originals, and then he just let it go. So that's the deistic way of thinking, right? But Christianity is theistic. We don't believe God just let things go. We believe God is active in the world. He's active in our lives, each and every one of our lives, and also in the world history. And so, of course, he could manage things. He could kind of massage things in such a way that a perfect Bible is created. He's able to do that because he's God, right? But they don't believe God could do that. That's why I was telling you the other thing about them is like they're like that thing where Paul says that they have a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. This is what these people are doing.
And we, last week, I led the congregation in the Apostles' Creed, but we chose to use a more updated version of the Apostles' Creed. And as part of that, I just kind of prefaced it by saying, well, the quick and the dead, we don't describe living people as quick anymore. We don't, or the Holy Ghost. We have expressions like give up the ghost. And that's kind of a lingering remembrance of the fact that ghost and spirit used to be far more synonymous, but they mean different things now. People don't think of your spirit when they think of the term ghost. If you're going ghost hunting, the kind of idea is still there, right?
See, like now he's trying to think like because people don't have that understanding of the word ghost now, that therefore, we need to change the whole Bible. Like people are just too stupid to just think and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe back when they wrote the word ghost in the King James days, they had a different way of thinking about it. That's impossible. No, we need to give people they need to spoon feed people just give everything in the language that they use today. Like, why don't we put slang in it? Why don't they put the word like slang words or whatever, like words that people use today? Because it's dumb. Because anybody could just understand that when you read Holy Ghost in there, it's not talking about ghosts from some horror movie that you saw. It's talking about the Holy Spirit. And they just use the word ghost differently back then. Who cares? Who cares, man? But they make that into an issue because they're just nitpicking, but because they know they don't care. They don't care about the truth. This is just like shillery, you know?
Right? It's the person's spirit, maybe the idea of it being trapped in this realm or whatever. Right. But we just, in common parlance, don't think of it that way. And so there's a usefulness in the update, but also the way that we read the text, and to note that it's good to have a number of these, that both formal and dynamic equivalent translations are going to help you. Assuming you take a multi-translational approach, having pulled out multiple Bibles already, if someone were to ask you, okay, I'm looking for, say, one more word for word and one more thought for thought translation, what would be the ones that you would recommend?
I love my ESV, and I did work briefly for Crossway, but I don't get any kickback for saying this. I love those books, and I trust them. I trust the translators. I trust the people who lead the organization. And there's a reason I'm about to introduce a almost silly pragmatic idea.
What's the derivative copyright law? What's that? You mean if they try to publish a KJV with different words, they'd have to. Oh, you're saying like the copyright law? Yeah. That's why they always try to make new copies and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Because the KJV doesn't need copyright, or there's no copyright. Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about that in my video.
Okay, I like the ESV in large part and as a literal translation because of its typography. That's partly because I'm a nerd on these things. I was a graphic design major. I actually run a graphic design business, and I have for many years. For a long time, it was a side thing. Now it's actually kind of my main thing. It's a tent-making ministry for me that opens up Bible teaching opportunity. I love good type. I say that's almost silly because I recognize, obviously, that the quality of the translation is more important than the typeface that you choose. But the point I'm trying to make, and I have now for many years made the same point, is when it comes to formal translations like the ESV versus the NASB versus the New King James, they really are so incredibly similar that I feel the liberty to make a choice based on the typeface. I think Crossway has a really particularly good focus on excellence in typography and in producing useful editions of the Bible, like journaling editions and readers editions, etc. Even the bindings, I like, and I really do love Lexicon, the font that they use for most of their Bible translations. So I can choose my translation, my favorite, based on.
See that book introductions, right? Like, I'm not opposed to book introductions in the Bible necessarily, but you do have to be careful, right? Because a lot of times that book introduction is not part of the Bible, and who knows what they're saying. But look at this. They have nice typeface, but it's not even in the verses. It's like by paragraphs. I actually hate it when they do the paragraph thing, because then that means that they made the choice, Whereas if you see it by verse in the numbered verses, right? Then you know in your head that okay, originally it didn't have the numbers, it didn't have the chapters, but every verse is numbered now, so you can kind of just read it like that. But you know that in your head. But when they actually put the paragraph for you, that creates this kind of meaning. That like a paragraph has a meaning, you know what I mean? It means like this part is a little bit separated from this part. They're doing that. They're making that decision for you, That's why you have to be careful with those things too.
Lexicon, the font that they use for most of their Bible translations. So I can choose my translation, my favorite, based on comparatively important matter, because they're also similar. That's the one I choose as my formal translation. And for a less formal, for a more functional, boy, that's really hard. If I could only have two, I would probably go for the Christian Standard Bible at this point. It's actually a mediating translation. It really isn't super functional. It's kind of right in the middle, in between. But I find it's different often enough from the ESV and other more literal translations. I just want to get kind of shocked out of the rut that I've been in, for my entire life. I've read King James type translations.
I want to be shocked out of the rut. This is the reasons he's giving. This is the reasons. The first one was, I like the typeface that they use. Or I guess he likes their translations too. He likes like probably 20 different translations. He thinks the 20 different translations are pretty good. So he'd recommend any of those. But then given the like, because he's being asked to choose now, he's saying, okay, I like this one because its typeface is nice. And then this other one, what did he say? Some stupid reason.
The ESV and other more literal translations. I just want to get kind of shocked out of the rut that I've been
Oh
in.
yeah, I want to get shocked out of the rut. Shut up, idiot. That's the reason? That's your reason for recommending a Bible, because you want to get shocked out of the rut? What a joke.
For my entire life, I've read King James type translations as my main translation. The ESV is not that different from the King James. That's one of the reasons I like it. It's very similar to what I grew up with. But that does mean you're running across a bunch of phrases like, to use an American example, every day I would pledge allegiance to the American flag. And it's really hard when you use the same language every single day to actually think about what it means. It's so easy to just gloss over things. So I want something that's pretty different. And I find that the CSB often enough makes me think, oh, okay, what does that passage mean? That's the one I would choose.
Yeah, I chose a number of years ago
So
to try to
now,
read the entire Bible.
so remember they were saying before, they're saying that they want a Bible that people can understand, right? That's why they're saying the King James. You need to get rid of the King James because we need a Bible that people can understand today. But now he's saying that he's looking for a Bible that causes him to ask the question, like, hey, what does that mean? Like he's like, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole reason why they want modern Bibles is because they're saying the King James is hard to understand. And he just literally said that he wanted a Bible that would kind of make him ask the question of, what does this mean?
The same language every single day to actually think about what it means. It's so easy to just gloss over things. So I want something that's pretty different. And I find that the CSB often enough makes me think, oh, okay, what does that passage mean? That's the one I would choose.
Oh, what does that passage mean? So on the one hand, they're trying to say that we need a new Bible, or we need modern Bibles because the King James is too hard to understand. We need a Bible that we can just easily understand it. As soon as you read it, you understand exactly what it means. You don't have to check a dictionary or anything. That's what we need. If you don't have that, then we're failing as Bible expositors. And now this guy's trying to say that no, he actually wants a Bible that he can't understand. That he has to go look it up. It's so utterly dumb. These guys are just back and forth.
Choose. Yeah, I chose a number of years ago to try to read the entire Bible through in a different English translation. And so that was about 4 years ago now, starting with ESV, because that's what we have in the pews at our church, and that's what we preach from. But last year was the CSB, and I loved it. I thought it was a really well done translation. Before that was the NLT, the New Living Translation. And once again, I thought, there's some really good renderings of the text. That would be far more on the dynamic end of the spectrum. But
how are you, brother? God bless you, man. Thanks for joining, brother.
I thought it was really good. And this year, actually, my Bible of choice is an LSB that I've been reading. And once again, like you said, it's not that different certainly from a New American Standard Bible, because in some cases they're trying to emulate. Right?
Look at this guy. And Legacy Standard Bible. You know what this is? The MacArthur stupid Bible. John MacArthur made about like now they're just the whatever. Last year I had the ESV. Then this year I had the CSB. Now I went with the LSB. They just switch Bible every time, dude. What's the point of that? What is the point of doing that? And then this Bible, by the way, this is one of the wickedest Bibles you can have now. Legacy Standard Bible by this Calvinist wicked false teacher. It's so bad. These guys are just complete shills, man. All this stuff. Why would you even like this Bible isn't even good, man. Like even as a scholar, as a person who's supposed to be learned in the Bible, but again, this guy's a shill. But I'm just saying, most scholars would not recommend this Bible. As far as I know, I don't really know for 100%, but the way this guy did it, like he started changing things to Yahweh. He started putting Yahweh instead of God and stuff. He'll do stuff like that, He'll do stuff like that. It's like utterly dumb. This Bible sucks. I would never recommend this Bible. Even like if I was a person who wasn't a King James onlyist, just by my knowledge of text criticism and stuff, I would just not recommend this Bible. This Bible is ridiculous. But this guy's like, oh yeah, it's fine. Just go for it. So dumb.
Once again, like you said, it's not that different certainly from a New American Standard Bible, because in some ways that's what they're trying to emulate. Right? On ESV or even a New King James, I'm really enjoying it. Finding differences in the ways, particularly in texts that I'm very familiar with, noticing different aspects of how a translation can be. And maybe that's a good place also just to touch on. How are these translations put together, Mark, when you talk about the ESV Translation Committee? For those who are just completely unfamiliar, maybe the Bible is new to them, or they've read the Bible for years and maybe haven't looked at the first few pages that are more to do with the publisher than they are to do with the actual contents of the Bible. How do these things come to fruition?
I think it's really important to start by recognizing that ever since William Tyndale in the 1520s, there really hasn't been a translation that could start from scratch. Even he had some tradition to appeal back to in Wycliffe and in common Christian discussion of Christian things. He didn't have to invent that many words. He did have to do a little of that. Ever since then, we've had this dominating tradition, the Tyndale tradition, and I think it's been an excellent tradition. I'm very thankful for it. When it comes right down to it, if I have to choose for my church something, I actually want to go with that tradition precisely because it's done such good for the church. I wouldn't put that on other people's consciences, but that's where I would go. So that's why I would use the ESV. Among the Bible translations that have arisen from that.
What's up, brother Eli? God bless, man. But yeah, thanks for that. That's a good comment.
Tradition, the major evangelical Protestant versions that you and I would mainly have on our shelves, although they're not what I use exclusively in my study, they're what I tend to have physical copies of and know the best. Those have all been done not by individuals but by committees, and there's an implicit theological point being made there, and an important one, and I think that will bring some comfort to your viewers who often enough are asking, in my experience, which one can I trust? Why do they differ, and is anybody monkeying with this? The fact that people from multiple different but still evangelical Protestant denominations got together to produce these translations tends to, I think, build trust, because nobody gets to the controls. Nobody gets to say, well, I'm going to make this more Credo Baptist and less Paedo Baptist, or I'm going to make this more dispensational and less covenant, or I'm going to make this more charismatic or more cessationist. I think it's a good and healthy thing for multiple Bible-believing, gospel-preaching denominations to send scholars to these committees. That is generally what happens with them. But I'm a great disciple of John McWhorter. I listened to his Lexicon Valley podcast for years now, read a bunch of his books.
Wow, dude, these guys just push other shills, man. And then like this guy's a complete shill too, by the way. But anyway, the point is, like, he's just trying to tell you that, oh, well, if they have different people from all these different denominations, then they'll get together and they'll write a Bible that's not going towards any denomination. But at least look, if there's all these denominations, at least one of them is right? So wouldn't we want a Bible that's going towards them? We wouldn't want something that's in the middle, because all of them are like, there's only one of them could possibly be right. Maybe they're all wrong, which is what I actually believe, right? But even if you don't believe they're all wrong, you're going to think that one of them is right. So you wouldn't then want one that's kind of in the middle between all of them. You would want one that goes toward the one that's right. But he's telling you, no, we should just get one that's kind of general, kind of generic, because that's what they want. They want this kind of generic Christianity that has no teeth, the ecumenism type of thing,
And a major theme of his is gently reminding people that language changes, and that's okay. Just take a deep breath. Every single word you use, every way you spell any word, with the possible exception of ancient words like the word sack, everything is the result of language change. And we still go around, we're still able to communicate with one another. I'm not saying let's adopt every single change anybody proposes. It doesn't work that way. But once the majority of English speakers tend to speak and write a certain way, that's English. And we need to reflect that if we want to communicate God's word to them. Those are some of the major elements that come into.
Yeah, we need to reflect that. Yeah, King James English is basically the same English we use today. There's some differences. But of course, we know many of the differences were purposely put in by the King James translators, that they didn't even exist in their English of the time. Like the use of ye and ye and you, thee and thou, and the way they formally do everything like that wasn't part of their language in England at the time. It wasn't. They did that because they wanted to create a language that could express those elements of those original languages. For example, the whole idea, like how they have like a plural second person pronoun and a singular, right? Whereas our English doesn't have that. So they wanted to preserve that, so they used that thing. They literally invented a language for the King James Bible. Not that they invented the whole language, but they used those kind of grammatical rules for the Bible, And so those are all things we can easily learn, and then you can read the book, right? It's very good. And it's just the way it helps you. It teaches you about English as well. It teaches you about history, about culture, about civilization and stuff. There's lots of benefits to this, man. There's nothing wrong with it.
Into translation revision when the committees get together to produce them.
A good point to highlight. There's kind of a building on a tradition that's a good thing that we can continue to work on. I often illustrate this point when I give talks by quote Psalm 23 from this old and 9th century
you really
Bible
do.
that I found.
You really do. The Tyndale grads, dude, there's some corrupt mofos coming out of Tyndale. Like these guys, people come out of Tyndale and they'll become like these super popular preachers and stuff. And then they turn out to be these corrupt, wicked, scandalous people. Like Ravi, that guy Ravi, what's the guy's name? The Ravi. He's like an apologist guy. Then he died, but he was like, after he died, then it came out that he was like some sex pest or something like that. Anyway, that guy Ravi, whatever. That guy went to my school, and then this other guy who's a Canadian. You probably never heard of him, but he got famous in Canadian culture, Canadian Christian culture, right? And then he turned out to be a sex pest. And then I don't know how long it's going to take before Wes Huff gets exposed for his lies, But there's something up with this guy too. Some weird stuff with this guy, guaranteed.
I found, a lot of people are familiar Psalm 23. Maybe you know it in the King James. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. Or the more common word.
Yeah. Ravi Zechariah. Ravi Zechariah went to my school. Ravi Zechariah went to my school, and this other guy from Canada. I forget his name now, man. This other show, like, idiot, but they're sex pests, you know, or they're just like they're weird, like they're like perverts, you know. And then this guy's another one, man. I don't know what's gonna happen with him.
The Lord is my shepherd; I lack nothing. But in the 9th century, it sounded like Drayton me written me place me goods one, and he may get set it on with good foland. Is that English? Yes, but is that how we would understand it today? No. And so I often say that your English Bible has been changed.
No, of course. Look, look, this is Old English. Old English. The King James is not Old English. Okay, the King James is just like it's modern English, said in a way that's kind of old style. Okay, fair enough. And some of the words are archaic. Okay, that happens. Whatever. This is not Old English. Old English is totally different. Old English is literally like another language. Like, you can't speak it, you know? It's kind of like how Greek, like Koine Greek and modern Greek, you can't speak that, you know? That's like how Old English is different. Totally different. This guy's trying to say, oh, it's the same thing. It's just like it's so hard to read this thing. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. See how they do this? See how they put the E, the down, the green, with the E? That, like, most King James don't have that, right? Because we use more generally, we'll use like the 1789 or something, or like the 1900 perfect one, right? So they put that there to make it more kind of like, oh yeah, King James is so old, we need a new Bible, you know. They do that on purpose. Most King James doesn't have the E on the green or the E on the down, but they do that on purpose. But anyway, look, there's no comparison between this and Old English Galba Psalter. That's ridiculous. And then look, okay, let's look at this, like NIV versus King James. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. NIV, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That's garbage. Just based on the beauty of it, just based on the literary quality of the writing and the nature of it. It's garbage. It's trash. It doesn't have the majesty of God in it. But the King James does. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And yes, maybe some people are like, oh, what does it mean by I shall not want? They're like little kids, man. What kind of adult doesn't know what that means? Or even if they don't, okay, maybe some people don't know. They explain it to them, whatever. What's the big deal, man? What is the problem?
Is that English? Yes, but is that how we would understand it today? No. And so I often say that your English Bible has been changed not for the sake of corruption, but for the sake of clarity. And it's a good thing. And you want that. You want to be able to say green pastures and not swathed good foland, because that's a nonsensical phrase. As far as maybe you could dig into some dictionaries and figure out what it means. Or sometimes 1 Chronicles 26:18 says at Parbar westward forth the causeway into it Parbar, and that in the King James, Parbar is actually just a transliterated word. They weren't entirely sure what it was.
That's true. I shall not want is different than I shall lack nothing. What does it say? I shall lack nothing. I lack nothing. See. Okay. So you know what? Let's think about this. All right. I shall not want. I shall not want. That means I shall not lack anything. That's true. That's correct. I shall not. But shall means that it's a future tense, right? Whereas these guys put it, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That is, I lack nothing right now. And you might say to me, well, Mike, wait a minute. That's basically the same thing, but it's not. It's not the same thing. And there's a subtle difference there, right? It's like maybe he's talking. Maybe you're in a bad place right now in your life. Maybe you do lack things in your life, or you feel that you do, or whatever. And so you're reading Psalm 23. It's giving you some comfort because it says, "I shall not want." That means when the time comes, you'll have everything you need. Like maybe you're stuck right now, but you'll have everything you need. God will provide for you in the right time, you know. But they say, oh, I lack nothing right now. That has a different meaning. That's different. So when you read that, you might say, wait a minute, I do lack stuff. Wait a minute, I don't even have food on my plate. I do lack stuff. Well, that doesn't make sense, you know. So this is wicked. This is not the same thing at all. It's not. It's wicked, man.
English? Yes, but is that how we would understand it today? No. And so I often say that your English Bible has been changed not for the sake of corruption, but for the sake of clarity. And it's a good thing. And you want that. You want to be able to say green pastures and not swathed good foland, because that's a nonsensical phrase. As far as
yes, because that's Old English. It's ridiculous. They're trying to like I don't know. You have to be like a little kid to think that these people's arguments are logical or make any sense. But what happens is most Christians that listen to these people, right? They're kind of looking for a justification for their fake Bible. That's why they listen to these people. For us, we're like we know what the Bible is, so we don't have to. So we're not falling for this, right? But for most people, they're trying to believe them. They want to believe these people because then, if you can believe these people, then you can believe your fake Bible. And that's why they're able to get away with these dumb argumentation. But it's like little kid stuff, man. You telling me you're trying to tell me this old English thing is the same thing? This old English? You're trying to tell me that that's why we need to switch from the King James because of this old English Bible that nobody uses anymore? Kind of dumb.
9th century, it sounded like Drayton me writ me place me goods one, and he may get it on Swift good Foland. Is that English? Yes, but is that how we would understand it today? No. And so I often say that your English Bible has been changed not for the sake of corruption, but for the sake of clarity, and it's a good thing. And you want that. You want to be able to say green pastures and not Swift good Foland, because
that's a lie. Because once again, he's trying to say Swift good Foland like the old English, right? But we just established, just based on what I just showed you, that the NIV is not greater clarity; it's reducing clarity. It changed it from I shall not want to I lack nothing right now. They have changed the word of God. They have reduced the clarity. They've reduced your understanding of that word, of those words and that thing. They've completely changed it. It's not the same thing. People are wicked, dude.
That's a nonsensical phrase. As far as maybe you could dig into some dictionaries and figure out what it means. Or sometimes, 1 Chronicles 26:18 says, "At Parbar westward, forth the causeway, and to it Parbar." And that in the King James, Parbar is actually just a transliterated word. They weren't entirely sure what it was, and so the Hebrew word is Parbar. And now, if you open up to an ESV or an NIV or pick your modern English,
yeah, Parbar, because they didn't know what the word was, so they just changed it. So they just made a word in English that's kind of the same. Like, what do they call it? Transliteration. When they take sometimes they don't know what the word means, right? Or not often. I think this is maybe the only case in the Bible, but I don't know. Anyway, so they take it's not the only case, actually. There's other cases, but anyway. So when they take a word and they just, instead of translating it, what they're doing is they're just writing it in English letters. So they take the word is parbar in Hebrew. They didn't know what it meant, so they just wrote parbar in English. Okay, and this guy's trying to tell you that no, it should be as for the court to the west. It's a court. How do you know it's a court? Is it a court? How do you know that? They think it's a court. Other Bibles won't say court. They'll say like something else, like college or something. They say all kinds of different things for that word. Okay? So the King James is correct to do this. So they say we don't know what this word means. So we'll put parbar. And then people can kind of figure it out. And then when it says, okay, a parbar westward and forward the causeway, even if you don't know, you're not able to do some kind of research and figure out what that means. You're like, okay, what they're saying is they're giving you directions how to go here, go this way, then go that way. Or not, it's not going, but it's like showing you like where the thing is, right? It's telling you like where this thing is. It's for the parbar and then go west at the causeway. So then you can kind of put it together, right? But then these guys are like, oh no, go to the court. At the court, go to the west, and then there are 4 at the road, and then 2 at the court itself. Like, dude, this sucks.
English translation, it will say court, because we now know that a parbar is a court. And so these are good things. And I don't
we know that a parbar is a court. How do you know that a parbar is a court? How do you know that, Wes Huff? Why do other Bibles say other words? If you know that the parbar is a court, and some other Bible says something else than court, then why are you saying that all the Bibles are the same and we should just read whatever Bible we want? Some other Bible doesn't say court there. It says some other word. Are you saying you know the parbar is a court? Then that's the correct word, right? So any Bible that doesn't say court there is wrong, and you shouldn't put that Bible, right? But this guy will just say, oh, read whatever Bible. It doesn't matter. Go for it. Whatever. It's so dumb. Utterly dumb.
It diminishes the word of God, but it helps us understand. The word of God is still clear, still living, still active. These are good things in terms of the progression of the fact that we have translation committees that are involved in this. There are a handful of translations that are done by individuals.
See, they think they're stupid translation committees. Because you know how it says the word of God is living and active? So he's trying to suggest to you, my discerning listeners who are not going to fall for this, he's trying to suggest to you that the fact that they have these translation committees and they're constantly translating and making new translations, that's what it means when it says the word of God is living and active. But of course, that's not what it means by any means whatsoever. The word of God is living and active. You know, the fact that the King James is like this standard thing that's just created, it's just part of our culture, it can never change. It's just a historical fact. It can never change. You know, that makes it living and active, because it's this monument in our culture, in our history. It's this thing that it's just part of the landscape of our whole culture. You know, so that's why it is living and active. It affects our lives. It affects our culture. It affects who we are. But these dumb Bibles, they have no effect on you. They have no power. They have no kind of like. There's nothing to make like to draw your heart or anything. You know what I mean? It's not. They're just and they'll be there for 10 years and they'll make a new one. And they try to tell you, oh well, we did our best on the last one, but now we got better. Well, why do I think that this is better? Well, if you guys made a mistake last time, why would I think that this one's good? Why do you have to change it? Anyway, it's just dumb. It's just utterly dumb.
Would you say that if, say, someone is looking at a translation that's maybe not overtly mainstream, that you would recommend someone to read a translation that's maybe even produced by their favorite New Testament or Old Testament scholar?
So I think what I'd like to see is people recognizing the role that institutions commonly play in the building of widespread trust in society, even far beyond religion or Christianity. I give the example in
The New King James is bad too, Crafty. I would stay away. I don't recommend. Oh yeah, that's true? That's interesting. 10 editions? Wow, that's horrific.
By their favorite New Testament or Old Testament scholar.
So I think what I'd like to see is people recognizing the role that institutions commonly play in the building of widespread trust in society, even far beyond religion or Christianity. I give the example in my book, Authorized, the Use and Misuse of the King James Bible. My municipality up here in the Skagit Valley of Washington uses a particular blend of rocks and tar or whatever to produce the local asphalt. And I've never gone and checked with them once. I've just driven on the road. I tend to trust that that institution is doing its job. And if there's some guy or girl and it's their job to research, you know, the new recipes coming out of whatever university studies such things, I don't care. I don't know. They're just going to do their job and I'm going to trust them. Same goes with so many other elements of our world. God is so that.
That's what he's trying to say now. Now he's trying to say that, hey, you know how you trust your city to put asphalt on the road? So you just kind of trust them, right? So you should trust the Bibles. Trust the universities and the scholars and when they make Bibles. But why are there 100 different Bibles then? If we could trust them, then they'd have one. And then we'd trust that. It'd just be like the road. It'd be like the road. I trust the road. Yeah, you're right. I do trust the road. I don't question the road or whatever, right? But we do question our society's like structures too. That's the other thing about it. We shouldn't have this mentality where we just trust everything they do. We should have this mentality where we're constantly keeping them accountable and staying informed and checking to make sure they're doing stuff right and stuff, you know? Oh, somebody from the server said that? Oh, that's so sad. Well, we'll work on them. Glad at least they're on the server. We can help them out. These guys are lost.
That no one person can really be a Renaissance man, certainly not anymore. There are very intelligent people, and I know people who do seem to know everything, but there's limits to even their knowledge. You got to trust some people to do some things. And what do? We build institutions so we can steward and collect that trust. And there's a measure of good old, this is more of an American thing, but there's something of a checks and balances idea that if we build institutions, then we're not going to have just one person being the Pope and making rulings for everybody else. They're going to have to, even within that institution, collect different gifts and intellects and abilities and strengths and weaknesses. The major evangelical translations are coming out of major evangelical.
No, that's why the King James is good too, because it's like this Bible that's like everybody can go to that. It doesn't matter who you are. Whether you're the president or you're some homeless person, you know, when it comes to the Bible, we can just look at what it says and say, hey, you're wrong because this is what this book says. The Holy Word of God says this. You say that, then therefore you're wrong. Whether the guy is a poor man or a rich man or whatever, that's like that allows for that kind of society where everybody can have this kind of democratic or whatever you want to call it, like kind of society, right? But when you have this kind of society, what he's suggesting, where you just trust the institutions, right? Then, of course, who runs the institutions? The powerful, the rich, the elite. Then we have to trust on them, and then they're gonna engineer things that benefits them. So he's saying the exact opposite of what's a reasonable approach. Like, I can't describe to you how every single thing out of these people's mouth is exactly the opposite of what you would actually want to believe about these things. If you sit here and really like dissect what they're saying, it's completely absurd. Everything out of their mouth is absurd. You know, the chickens at the beginning is the best thing they said.
evangelical institutions. Crossway is a major evangelical institution. Brahman and Holman, who put out the Christian Standard Bible, major evangelical institutions. Zondervan and Biblica and others that are involved with NIV. Tyndale with the New Living Translation. These are collections of Christian people who have trained hard and they work together inside an institution. I would trust the translations that come out of committees and institutions to be usable for the things they say they're usable for, and often they are meant for use in church, meant to be your standard Bible. Whereas N.T. Wright, David Bentley Hart, Scott Knight, I don't think, and Mike Bird is working on one of these with Lexham. I don't know if it's out yet. I don't think it is. I don't think they're even intending for those translations to be your main translation. I think they're supposed to be study tools, and they're supposed to be kind of shocking to get you out of your rut. And as long as you know that, I'm happy with people using translations like that. I think that should build trust rather than lower it.
You mentioned your book, Authorized, so I'll just give it a shameless plug by holding up and saying that if you are interested in some of the things.
Scott Knight, I don't think, and Mike Bird is working on one of these with Lexham. I don't know if it's out yet. I don't think it is. I don't think they're even intending for those translations to be your main translation. I think they're supposed to be study tools, and they're supposed to be kind of shocking to get you out of your rut. And as long as you know that, I'm happy with people using translations like that.
Oh yeah. Now he's recommending these translations that they're made to be shocking. Why would you need a Bible to be shocking? He's trying to say that. Oh, anyway, man, these guys. On one hand, they'll say, "Oh, hey, we need a Bible that everybody can just pick up and understand." And if a Bible has any kind of cause for you to like go look it up in the dictionary, then it's no good. The Bible must be something you can just easily pick it up. Anybody can just pick it up and understand. Whether the person is uneducated, a 4-year-old, or they're 64, they should all just be able to easily understand it. And if it doesn't, then we need a new Bible, right? But then at the same time, he's also saying that, I recommend these Bibles that they shock you, they challenge you, and they make you kind of go look up stuff and all this stuff. So they're doing the same. Everything they say is a contradiction.
I think that should build trust rather than lower it.
You mentioned your book, Authorized, so I'll just give it a shameless plug by holding up and saying that if you are interested in some of the things we've been talking about, this is a highly accessible book. Recommending more and more books, and I'm almost exclusively looking for books under 150 pages. I find generally people don't read them. If they're more than that, not a knock on people who are writing books longer than that, but I think I give it to my mom. She highly recommends it, so that should go for something, right? And so we've already kind of touched on, and you mentioned it as the title of your book. But what about kind of these older translations? I quoted First Chronicles in the King James Bible. What are some sort of idiosyncrasies with the King James Bible? Because there is a large portion. I don't think it's maybe as large as it looks like online, but of people who advocate exclusively for the King James Bible for various reasons. What are some of the issues that come with going for
see what they say? See what he said? Oh, not as large as it sometimes look like online. Look, if it's even like the fact that these guys have to fight it all the time, they have to put these shills out to fight the King James thing all the time, right? It's because there is a huge thing. It's the silent majority. I was talking to you guys about how 55% of Americans read the King James. Even with all their dumb fake Bibles, they got 50 other Bibles. All the Protestant denominations, all the Catholic Church, every major Christian like organization, institution does not use the King James. But for some reason, 50% of Americans still use the King James. Why? Because it's just better. And most people, the silent majority that is looking for the truth, they understand that, So he's trying to play it down like, I don't think it's as much as it says online. But it's because, man, they're just trying to play down how popular it is.
The King James Bible. What are some sort of idiosyncrasies with the King James Bible? Because there is a large portion. I don't think it's maybe as large as it looks like online, but of people who advocate exclusively for the King James Bible for various reasons. What are some of the issues that come with going for a early modern English translation as opposed to an exclusively modern English translation like the ESV, like the CSB, these others that we've been talking about? What are the drawbacks, and maybe what are the positives?
Okay, King James Version. I've got mine here. I grew up with it, and in order to answer your question, let me tell a narrative. I used to work.
This guy's whole career. This guy, Mark Ward, his whole career is built on going against the King James. And this guy, Wes Huff, we used to fight. Me and this guy used to get in fights. I was just like one time. But anyway, we got in like a 3-hour debate. One night we were at this thing. Anyway, we had this 3-hour debate over the King James and stuff. This guy's trying to tell me I should stop reading the King James. I was kind of new to Christianity back then. That was my first year at seminary. I'd only been a Christian for a few years, but I already knew the King James is superior to this dumb garbage.
Translation as opposed to an exclusively modern English translation like the ESV, these others that we've been talking about. What are the drawbacks, and maybe what are the positives?
Okay, King James Version. I've got mine here. I grew up with it, and in order to answer your question, let me tell a narrative. I used to work for a Christian textbook publisher for 9 years. I was a Bible textbook author, and we were serving Christian schools and homeschoolers that use multiple different Bible translations. We actually used the King James because that was the least objectionable, and it's just kind of tradition. One of my jobs was to make sure that I wasn't making a point in my Bible textbook for an 8th grader using an NIV. They go, "What? That's not what it says." So I needed to check multiple translations, and as Paul says, that was the very thing I was eager to do. I love checking multiple translations. So I was reading along in 1 Kings 18,
as Paul
21
says.
Was.
I think this guy just said, as Paul says. Like Paul, are you trying to say Paul checked multiple translations of the Bible, you absolute idiot? How dare you? How dare you say that in this? How dare you compare yourself to Paul? How dare you act like Paul has your retarded philosophy of just like confusion?
to make sure that I wasn't making a point in my Bible textbook for an 8th grader using an NIV. They go, what? That's not what it says. So I needed to check multiple translations. And, as Paul says, that was the very thing I was eager to do. I love checking multiple translations. So I was reading along in 1 Kings 18, 21 it was, and I was reading in the ESV, even though I've got the King James right here. And the ESV has Elijah saying something that I didn't expect. So I grew up with the King James, and I heard many sermons on this passage. Elijah says, how long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him.
Oh, yeah, halt. Yeah, halt. We talked about this, right? This guy always talks about this. Who cares, man? Like, look. Okay, let's say you think halt means stop. Because that's what halt means in modern English. So anyway, let me just play it out.
And I was reading the ESV. You've got it right. If the Lord be God, follow him. But if they just thought, that's not right. And I was pretty far along in my seminary studies at that point. And I was like, well, the King... And it said, not how long halt ye between two opinions, but it said, how long will you go limping between two?
All right, so let's talk about this now. So the word halts, even in modern English, by the way, you can still see that. Or, I mean, it's in late modern English, like the English we use today. People will still use that word halt in that way. It's not impossible to hear that. That still happens. But let's just say, okay, most people today, when they hear the word halt, they think of stop. It means stop, right? And they'd use that word halt in that way back then as well. But they also had this other meaning, which is limping. So halt means limping. All right? And so this word here is, how long halt ye between two opinions? That is, how long will you limp between two opinions, between God or Baal? Are you going to worship God or are you going to worship Baal? How long will you halt between two? Pick a side. That's what Elijah is saying, right? And this was limping. So now let's say you didn't realize that. You thought it was halt, you thought it was stop. Does it make a difference? Like in the what he's actually, the question he's asking is, are you gonna choose one or the other, or are you just gonna be wishy-washy forever? So halt between two is functionally, in terms of the theological point that Elijah is trying to make, functionally, the word halt, whether it means stop or limping, is exactly the same. It means the same thing. So maybe you don't get it the first time you read that or whatever. You're like, stop. How long do you stop between two opinions? Well, it's the same thing. If you understand what he's getting at in the context, you get what he's saying, that, okay, they should choose. They should choose either God or they should choose Baal. They should not just go in between. That's all he's saying. So it really makes no difference whatsoever to the actual meaning of it. Now, I'm not suggesting that I want people to have that limited understanding. I want people to understand what it really means. So I think it's good that people write books like what he wrote, where it's kind of identifying these things. And so other people can read those books and we'll have a better understanding of the Bible. That's good. But this makes like no big difference. There's like no real difference here, you know?
Between two opinions. And I just thought, that's not right. And I was pretty far along in my seminary studies at that point, and I was like, well, the King James translators weren't dummies, the ESV translators weren't dummies.
That's what this is. That's what this is. This is straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. That's exactly what this is. When these people talk about this halt thing, or these false friends, having these false friends,
it's very unlikely that there's some kind of textual variant here. Like some Hebrew manuscripts say halt and some say limp. So I looked up the Hebrew to see what's going on, and sure enough, the Hebrew says limp. It did not say halt. And I thought, that just can't be right. I just don't expect the King James translators to make an error on something this simple. So I thought, well, I'll search the King James for the word halt. And sure enough, in the New Testament, you'll have passages where Jesus is, in the King James, healing the halt and the blind. And I just slapped my forehead at my desk. Duh. How long halt ye between two opinions in King James English in 1611, Elizabethan English? That meant, how long will you go limping between two opinions? They're actually not disagreeing. I had always taken halt to mean, halt, who goes there? Because that's how they talked in ye olden days. And I've since discovered that many, many other people have taken it the same way. Almost nobody gets it right. When I ask them, I've asked hundreds of people. The only people who've gotten it right are Old Testament scholars who happen to know what's going on. That, feminists and whatever bad people you want to choose have not gotten to the controls of English and changed it so that halt no longer means limp and now it means stop. No.
You know what? By the way, let me just see something else about this word. This word is pasak, I think. Let me just check this. Oh, let me actually show you guys this word. And then I'm gonna get off of this thing because I'm sick and tired of these idiots, but let me just show you this thing here. So I hope you guys can see that. This is the word here, halt. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. And the people answered him, not a word. Let's look at this word halt. So obviously these people won't even deny. They'll even deny this this Strong's concordance thing, right? But anyway, let's look at this. Pasak, a primitive root, to hop. That is figuratively skip over or spare. By implication, to hesitate. Also, literally, to limp, to dance, halt, become lame, leap, pass over. So let's think about this. Is Elijah actually telling the people that they're limping between two opinions? Does that make any sense? Wouldn't it be better to say that they're hesitating between two opinions? Doesn't that make more sense? And then if that's what it is, hesitate, then that's basically the same as stopping. And so there's literally no problem with this, you know? Like they're trying to make a problem where there's no problem. Like IGN was saying how they strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. That's what this is. Hesitate is it's not limp. Why would Elijah say, why are you limping between two opinions? Does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. But if he says hesitate, that makes sense. That's like, okay, that makes sense. So this is what they do, man. They try to confuse you with these things. Like, who cares about this? It's a non-issue. But they make it into an issue because they don't have a real criticism of the King James. They don't. They have these dumb things that they always bring up that just make no sense. Who cares? Anyway, I'm gonna move on. These guys suck. Yeah, halt is better. Halt is better than whatever these guys. These guys are gonna say, "Oh, we need to get an NIV because it says limp." Shut up, idiot.
Okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike and Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you wanna support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shields. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike and Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.